This is Jordan Poyer, safety for the Buffalo Bills, and you are now listening to Cover One Buffalo Podcast. Let's go.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo Podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, and I've been away for a while. It was a little bit crazy. As everyone can see, I'm fulfilling every podcast stereotype that exists. I'm literally am going live from a mother's basement, and it's my mother-in-law. So maybe that's a little bit different. It's not my mom, but it's kind of funny. My family and I got packed up and moved out of Atlanta. We are now officially on the road here and in our new location in Cleveland, Ohio, in search of a home. So we haven't found our new future home yet. So we're lucky enough to be able to be shacked up with my lovely in-laws and allowing us to stay here with them while we're out searching. And I'm now literally podcasting from my mom's basement. So, I can check that off the list. I really struggled whether to jump on today. So I'm not going to take up a lot of time in, going through that thought process and everything, but I did struggle whether this was the right time to come on. Obviously, everyone is seeing all the things going on around us in just about every city that we live by. And it's really hard to collect my thoughts on exactly what that means. And, I've posted some things on social media, and I might talk a little bit at the end of the show about just some of my thoughts on everything going on. And I just struggled with the idea of whether it was right to come on and try to be a, momentary break for people to get their minds off of things and to be able to think about something else. Or whether that was going to come off tone deaf, and that obviously everything going around us is much more important than some guy talking about football. So I decided to jump on. I decided that I thought it was going to be a fun outlet to be able to talk a little bit here, and we will focus on the Bills and on football and on the things going on around us. But, at the end, maybe I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that I think, maybe some of us are feeling and struggling with, and we'll figure out what we want to do going forward. But right now, I will come on here and hopefully be a momentary break mentally for a lot of people on the things that we're struggling with. So, on a Bills front, that there are some things going on. Overall, with the NFL, there has been a pretty consistent mechanism and communication of a plan to move forward. There's been a lot of different speculation on what that means, but the only real firm information we have right now is the continued release of the schedule. Obviously, we talked about that on our last Cover One Buffalo podcast and where that left off. All other plans are for a virtual offseason to continue moving forward. Many teams have struggled with that, and I think that led to some of the stuff that we've seen recently. Before some of the fun news, we had some struggling news. A couple weekends ago, we got report of last year's first-round pick, 9th overall pick, Ed Oliver, got picked up on a DUI charge in Texas, not far from his hometown outside of Houston. He also had a firearm with him, which obviously is illegal to have a firearm in your possession while you're under the influence of any substance or alcohol. And he was picked up on those two charges. Not much has come out on information from that beyond that to this point. There's been a lot of speculation. Obviously, it's an incredibly disappointing thing to see anyone drive while under the influence. There was obviously a video out there of him taking the field sobriety test, going through the different things that are involved in that. He seemed to be compliant and, was not resisting in any fashion. Did not seem to be, I hate trying to differentiate between levels of intoxication, but he wasn't falling over. But obviously was under suspicion. They took him in for a blood test. We'll see what the results of that are. He obviously can afford appropriate legal representation. And I don't get into the mode of defending people that make a terrible choice that could have hurt himself or other people by operating a vehicle while under the influence. And I don't I'm not going to be here to defend that or to say that it's okay or he's young and he's going to learn from this and it's just a young mistake, because it could have killed someone to do that. So I'm not going to do that. I'm also not going to cheer for him any less. I do hope that he learns from this terrible mistake. I do hope that he's able to move forward from this and we don't see a pattern of behavior. And if we don't see a pattern of behavior, I hope that he's dealt with appropriately and he faces the repercussions of his actions. And I hope that we see normal, interaction moving forward, and that he can learn from that and be able to still be a productive member of this football team. So that's what I'm going to be focused on. I hope that he deals with this appropriately. I hope he's held accountable. And then if he's on the field, I'm going to cheer for him as loud as anybody else. And that I'll simply move forward there. If this isn't a recurring issue or something that happens again, it's something I'm going to move past, and everyone can make that decision on their own. But it's nothing less than disappointing to see that. So unfortunately, that was a downer in an offseason that's been surrounded by quite a bit of positive news. That's actually kind of difficult as a Bills fan to be able to process how much positive news there's been, and whether that's in record predictions, a lot of people throwing out there 11-5, 12-4, some crazy people 13-3. That's some pretty serious expectations. ESPN put out a thing from their NFL Nations reporters of only 4 teams were picked to go 12-4 or better, and the Bills were one of them. A lot of different people, Adam Shine, Michael Robinson, a lot of guys who have been pretty adamant Bills supporters. All the guys in Good Morning Football have been pretty good about supporting the Bills, calling them, outright AFC East division favorites, and they need to be expected to win the division. It's hard to be ready for that. I had the chance to go on with Joe Marino and a couple other guys on some different shows recently, and I like expectations. It's hard because I separate it professionally. In my real world job, I spend a lot of time managing expectations, telling people to set reasonable and attainable goals, putting themselves in a position to, meet their expectations, and then let it be a bonus if you exceed them. But fan is short for fanatic. Fanatic and fanaticism and fanhood is not a reasonable or logical experience. It's not something that we do because we want to be tempered and measured. It's because you want to lose yourself in the moment. You want to get excited. You want to be able to talk about all the awesome parts about rooting for a team. And Brandon Beane has put together an awesome roster that Sean McDermott has shown the capability to maximize the talent on his roster. And there's reason to be excited, and they should win this division, and there should be expectations to make the playoffs and win a playoff game. And I think it's okay to feel like anything short of that would be a disappointment, because I think it would. And that's weird to hear myself say out loud. I haven't felt that way in 25 years. I haven't, felt that way since Jim Kelly was gone. And even in the moments of the plucky Rob Johnson, Doug Flutie run, it wasn't a feeling of expectation that was there. So it's just something that, give me a moment. It's something that I want to be able to embrace. I want to be excited about. I want to be able to look at everything that they've done and let it build up. Let there be some expectation. Let there be some a raised bar, and that we need to do better. The joys of solo podcasting and needing a drink. And I like that idea, to be able to want more for this team. So the reasons we should want more is returning 20 out of 22 starters, returning, 25 out of the 31 biggest contributors to the team, having a good draft, having an offseason where you add a Stephon Diggs and multiple pieces at the right spots for depth on the offensive line and awesome depth on the defensive line. I think that's an exciting idea to be able to bring forward. And the reason there's excitement is continuity. The idea of continuity and being able to bring those things together to return everyone while all this madness is happening around us, limits on practices, limits on no OTAs, no mini camps, no way to build. Some of these teams who have had genuinely good off seasons. The Dolphins and the Jets haven't had bad off seasons. The Jets had an awesome draft. The Dolphins had awesome free agency. There's nothing wrong with saying that. Joe Douglas had a kick-ass draft. It was great. I think Miami added a lot of talent. They might have overpaid for some of it, but they added talent all over that roster from a free agency standpoint. There's nothing wrong with saying that. They're not going to get the normal offseason to get those guys on board in the repetition and ready to go. I love that the Bills return all of that. On top of returning all that, we got some awesome video footage recently. A couple new guys who were on the scene. Joe is an awesome photographer who had the scoop on everything. First, Josh Allen was out in California with the rookies out there with Gabe Davis, with Isaiah Hodgins. I think I saw Nick Easley out there in some of those initial workouts. Isaiah McKenzie was out there, and they were working out. That was a week or so ago. Then it flips around this week. We get the entire squad together down in Florida, all 4 quarterbacks. You had Josh Allen, Matt Barkley. You had the rookie Jake Fromm out there. You got everybody being able to pull it together, and pretty much every skill position player. You had Zach Moss last week, Devin Singletary this week. We finally got our first footage of Stephon Diggs catching passes from Josh Allen. It sounded like from reports he was exclusively working with Josh Allen, who wasn't rotating with the other 3 quarterbacks, and being able to start building that rhythm. So all the guys who already had a history together, already had continuity, we're now doubling down on that. I'm sure this is going on. They're not the only team doing this, but I don't think every team is doing this. I don't think every team is getting together and doing these workouts. So the fact that they already have a little bit of a head start from a continuity standpoint, now they're doubling down on that and adding even more to be able to build up some of that chemistry was really exciting to be able to see that they're taking advantage of that time, that they're putting that in to be able to get that rhythm and timing down. Obviously it's against air. There's, you should hit every single throw, but it looked good. They were out there having a good time. Looked like they were starting to build some of that chemistry and trust. You could see the awesome footwork from Stephon Diggs. Anyone who follows his IG page, the workouts and footwork drills he loads on Instagram are unbelievable. I've joked a couple times that I think my knee almost dislocated watching the video. The way that he is able to decelerate so crazy. People throw around the term stop on a dime. I don't know if they know exactly what that means. It's not necessarily the acceleration or the quickness. It's how fast you can stop. And the other guy has to take that other half step or stumble to catch himself and then cut. Stephon Diggs has amazing deceleration to be able to slow down, get his footwork set, and then cut and move out of that drill to make himself open. That's going to be exciting to see, and how he's able to build that chemistry and trust with Josh Allen to be able to put that together. So it's exciting to be able to build that. Ron was mentioning in the chat that Josh Allen looked big, and you could tell he's been working out. I think he's put on some healthy weight and some quarantine weight. I think he's got a little bit of both going there. His arms look a little bit thicker, his chest looks a little bit bigger, and he certainly hasn't lost any of the healthy weight that he had before. I like him as a young Ben Roethlisberger. Maybe not the Yukon Cornelius Ben Roethlisberger, but I like the idea that he's big and sturdy and thick, and able to stand up to the defensive linemen of the NFL are crazy athletes. So being able to stand up to a couple of hits here and there is healthy for him. So I think he's put on some good weight, and he's not chiseled by any measure, but he looks strong and he looks healthy. So I think it's great to see. Going through some of the next steps here, it seems like there's not a lot on the docket from formal engagement. It sounds like they've extended the dates for the virtual offseason. The Bills are doing a ton of Zoom meetings, going back and forth. We're on Zoom right now with our Cover One premium members and with the guys live on YouTube. And I think this is pretty much the basis of where we expect those things to go going forward. So I don't expect there to be a ton of different things from question standpoint, as far as next steps. As we get into the next phase on the show, if anybody in the chat here has some questions, feel free to throw those out there. I see Cheese has some in the YouTube chat. If anybody in the Zoom chat has any, I'll answer some questions here in a minute before we wrap up. But I think the virtual offseason is going to continue in the phases we see now. Any of the normal OTAs that would come back, I can't imagine there's any scenario where we see anyone in person prior to training camp, which puts us at the end of July. So we probably have 6-7 weeks of radio silence here, more, high school field workouts with IG videos like we saw for the guys getting together. But even them, they're not going to be able to keep doing that forever. They're going to go back to their homes. They're going to get ready and work out to, stay healthy and stay focused. I think that's about what we see. And then even when it gets back to it, there's a lot of different scenarios that have been thrown out there. I expect there to be a lot of different speculation on will fans be allowed to see anything. So I'll start out with my guesses. I don't expect there to be any fans at training camp. I think training camp is going to be closed to the public. I think it's going to be some media credentials. I expect most teams to be pretty strict on who gets a media credential. I expect them to be pretty limited. Some outlets that used to get 4, 5, 6 credentials might get 1 or 2. I think they're going to be pretty strict with those things. We'll see where that goes. I don't expect any fan interaction. If I had to guess right now, I would say we don't see any fans in preseason games because I think they might want to test it out. I think they'd love to get fans into stadiums. I personally don't see a path where you can get 70,000 people into a stadium, but I will say games are a good 4 months away. So, maybe things can change between now or then. I don't personally see the path of where that's going to be feasible from a testing safety standpoint and all the other things that come into it. But I've seen some creative solutions. I've seen some things thrown out there as far as, reduced attendance with questions in, a certain 6 seats in between and then an empty row in trying to get 10,000 people into a stadium instead of 70,000. Again, the entranceways, the bathrooms, the concession stands, I don't see how you can do that, but there are smarter people than me that can figure things like that out. So we'll see where that goes. I've seen a lot of speculation on, crowd noise. How do you simulate a, home field advantage? I think we're going to have to make some compromises this year, in my opinion. I want to see football, and I want to see football more than I'm in the principled stance of I only want football the way that I'm used to it, or else I want nothing. So I'm obviously different. I've been out of state for 20 years now. I haven't been a season ticket holder. I haven't been someone who goes to games regularly. So not having fans in the stadium, I'm not personally invested in that. I do think the Bills are hurt a little bit more than other teams because they have a great home field advantage and they're not in a position to, benefit that, a team like the Chargers who doesn't have any home field advantage, the Dolphins, teams like that who, the Texans who don't really have any huge home field advantage to speak of, they're hurt less by that. The Bills, the Chiefs, the Steelers, the Seahawks, teams with awesome home field advantages, this stings a little bit more not to have that raucous, crazy crowd behind you. So it is what it is. I think that this team is put together in a talented way. They would be able to move forward as well as any other team, and everybody would be used to this new weird normal if they go that path. But we'll see where that happens. As far as our schedule moving forward, we're going to start now that I'm in the friendly confines here. At some point here, hopefully I'll have my own house and my own office and my own studio. But for now, I'll be going live from my in-laws' basement here and keeping you guys company. We'll be doing a show each week and then being able to start with our position preview. So we'll start with our first one next week. I am going to have some guests on to be able to help go through some of those. A couple guys who are experts in the positions and a couple people that you guys are just familiar with in the Bills Mafia universe. So we'll have some fun with that and bringing on the right people to be able to talk through some of those position groups. Let's go to a couple of the questions that we had out there. One of the first ones, Archie's was asking about, am I excited about Daryl Johnson? So he did flash some potential. I will say, I think I was really excited about him in the preseason. I was adamant that we had to keep him on the roster because he showed way too much potential to try to hide him on practice squad. And then he was pretty disappointing during the season. They tried to give him reps early on. He was horrible against the run to the point where it was an almost automatic audible to run at him when he was in the game. And then in the second half of the season, he played none. Besides a couple blowouts, I think he played 21 snaps the entire last 9 games of the year. Now, he became a core special teams guy. That's not bad to have a defensive line rotational guy in case somebody gets hurt during a game. And he's very young, and he was in a lower level of competition in college. So there's a reasonable expectation that he improves beyond there, but he has to improve a lot to be able to do that. And the obvious guy there is everyone's favorite whipping boy, Trent Murphy. Trent Murphy's owed $8 million from a dead cap standpoint, and almost $10 million total. We'd have about a $2 million dead cap hit and $8 million in savings if he was released. I don't think he's a $10 million player, but he's a good player. And that's a perfect example. He's a way better player than Daryl Johnson. Now, I don't know that that means Daryl Johnson can't develop to that level, but last year, that's night and day. You know, over the final 5 games of the year, Trent Murphy had 5 sacks and then 2 more in the playoff game. That's 7 sacks in the last 6 games of the year. He looked really good down the stretch. Now, he wasn't consistent all the time. He still had some lapses. He still had some moments, here and there. But Daryl Johnson wasn't even in that universe. Now, if Daryl Johnson takes a material step forward, that would be the question is that, hey, has Daryl Johnson stepped up enough to be that 4th defensive end, and we can now take advantage of that $8 million in savings? If Daryl Johnson has not taken a material step forward, they're not going to cut Trent Murphy. He's a good football player. If we cut him, he'll be unemployed for like 1 day. He'll have a job the next day. He'll have multiple contract offers, and they won't be minimum contracts. He will get real money. Now, it might be 3 or 4 million and not the 10 million we're offering him, but he's a good player and is a rotational defensive end. So I know a lot of fans want that $8 million. I get why. That would help our cause towards all the extensions that are coming due with Milano and Dawkins and Trey White and everything like that. But I care more about the best team possible being on the field in 2020. And in my opinion, cutting Trent Murphy does not make the roster better. So I'm okay with him staying, even if it's a luxury to overpay your 4th defensive end $10 million. So, it is what it is. The next question was about Cody Ford at right tackle. What do I think about the right tackle situation? I'm okay with it. I think that Joe Marino and I just talked on a show that's coming out on Monday about the expectation of development and that fans have already decided what Cody Ford is or is not. He played half of the snaps. He was coming out of a very spread-heavy, pass-heavy offense in college, was learning new technique, and by the end of the season was solid. He was a normal rookie. He wasn't great. He probably was our weakest link on the offense. He was not a disaster. He was not a turnstile. He had good games against Von Miller and DeMarcus Lawrence. He didn't get beat up by J.J. Watt or some of the good defenders in the Houston game. He had good moments against good defenders. I thought Ty Nsekhe looked better than him in stretches, but Ty Nseke's a 34-year-old veteran, and he was a 22-year-old rookie. That's not crazy to see that. I like that we still have Ty Nsekhe. I like that they signed Darrell Williams, who, was an all-pro 3 years ago and was injured and then played injured and was really bad last year, but has that potential within him. And we can roll the dice that Cody Ford's better in year 2. So I don't know that I expect that to be automatic. I don't know that I expect Cody Ford to be some, all-pro right tackle. I am okay with him getting another year at right tackle, and then we're going to know. And if we need to move him into guard, well, John Feliciano and Spencer Long's contracts are up after this year, and we can move him into guard and then deal with where we need another player at right tackle or right guard next year. So I'm not putting all my eggs in the basket that Cody Ford is ready to be the right tackle of the future, but I'm open to him getting another year there, and I expect him to be the starting right tackle game 1 of this year with Ty Nsekhe being the swing tackle. That's my guess. Daniel was asking, who do you see as the surprise breakout player for the Bills? So surprise is tough because I think most of the guys are expected, the guys who are going to be good. I'll throw a shot in the dark. I've heard Lorenzo Alexander speak more than once about expecting a big step forward from Siran Neal. Saran Neal came out of a really small program at Jacksonville State. He's been great on special teams. He's started to step into that big nickel role a little bit more. So from a surprise standpoint, Dawson Knox isn't a surprise. Stephon Diggs isn't a surprise. The combo backfield of, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss isn't a surprise. Everybody else are established players. I don't expect any of that. Maybe Josh Norman not being terrible. Would that be a surprise? So I'll throw a dart at Saran Neal splitting reps with Taron Johnson at the nickel and me more a bigger part of the scrimmage defense would be my surprise. B-Lo had asked about Darrell Williams. Do I think he can show out and become a starter? I think he's a luxury. I don't expect that. I don't expect him to take over as a starter. It would be awesome if they somehow threw a dart for $2 million and recaptured his all-pro season from Carolina in 2017. Man, that would be an amazing discovery and lottery ticket. That's unreasonable to expect. I don't expect that. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but it is in the realm of possibility. He did that. It was only 3 years ago. He was injured badly and missed the whole season in 18. He tried to come back in 19, played 4 different positions on the offensive line, many of those out of position on the left side. It's not crazy to think that the injury and playing out of position was the reason he looked bad last year. And for $2 million, it's a no risk investment. So if he is just a good experienced backup and he's our Adrian Waddle or our Wyatt Teller backup guy, that's great. That's totally fine. If he somehow recaptures that and is healthy and uses the Bills' health and wellness facilities to get himself right and is in a great position to step forward and recapture that, that's awesome. And that is a great problem to have, to be able to do. Then whether he bumps John Feliciano out of the lineup at right guard or Cody Ford out of the lineup at right tackle, maybe Ford moves into guard, those are all awesome problems to have. I would love to have those problems where we have too many good starting linemen. That would be great. Next one about who wins the number 2 cornerback spot. Daniel, I don't like to default to money decides everything, but they didn't give Josh Norman $6.5 million to be the backup. They're going to say all the right things. They're going to say that nobody's handed anything. They're going to say everybody competes and you have to win your spot. And Levi Wallace is going to be given a chance to do that. And I'll say that it's not 90-10. It's 70-30 Norman, but it's 70-30 Norman. Like, he has a head start. And if he looks pretty good, Sean McDermott's spoken pretty confidently about Norman recapturing what he's capable of. We'll see if that's real. We'll see if he's got anything left in the tank. But I expect game 1, rep 1, I expect it to be Josh Norman opposite of Trey White, and then we'll all cross our fingers that he's got it left and doesn't get toasted. So we'll see where that goes from there. B-Lo with a good question. How about Voshon Joseph as an impact player? So I'm in a similar camp with some other folks. Voshon Joseph looked bad last year in training camp and in preseason games. He did not look like a guy who was going to make the roster. I kind of tongue-in-cheek joked that they hid him on IR because they were going to cut him. And instead they put him on IR. Now, that wasn't fair because I think he did have a real injury and did have surgery. So he went on IR appropriately. That wasn't, any sneaky move by the Bills. But he did not look good. Now, he was a rookie, and he was a 5th-round pick rookie, and a lot of rookies look bad in their first training camp. Heck, Jaquan Johnson looked bad in training camp and preseason games. He looked pretty darn good at the end of the year. So that's not unreasonable. He's a late-round pick for a reason. I've heard that he looks huge and put on some really good muscle and is looking really good from a physical standpoint going into this camp, and that would be awesome. I'm not expecting much other than a depth linebacker. I expect him to, take over for Corey Thompson or Maurice Alexander or Julian Stanford, that kind of role as just a backup depth linebacker. If he's more than that and he makes it that he's our succession plan for AJ Klein is that 3rd linebacker, that's awesome. That's a great bonus. I'm not expecting that from what I saw on the field and what I saw on film. but that would be great. And it's not unreasonable to think that a rookie takes a better step forward in year 2 than what he showed in his first training camp and preseason. So that's totally doable. I think he missed some important reps, but I think he was in the room learning film, and he obviously took the offseason seriously because he's healthy and thick in what he's looking like. Another question, Knox having a problem with drops. The Bills have solid depth at the tight end position. I've said multiple times, I don't think that the Bills have a tight end 1, an obvious tight end 1. I think Dawson Knox is going to be our tight end 1. I think Dawson Knox is capable of being a tight end 1. You can't drop as many passes as he did last year and be the trusted receiver that you need at tight end 1. Obviously, when he gets the ball in his hands, that's a train wreck. That's a dude who's looking to hurt people. That's a lot of fun. Some of those stiff arms and some of the things that he did from that standpoint were, awesome highlights to be able to see and to be able to put forward. But, we need to see more consistent hands. Now, some of those things, people have found some good exceptions. For any fan who's not aware, Tony Gonzalez led the NFL in drops his first 2 seasons in the league. He ended up with the second most catches in NFL history. So all we need is for Dawson Knox to be Tony Gonzalez, and we're fine. So obviously that's not normal, but that does show that you can learn to be more focused and not to drop balls. He came from a college program where he didn't get a lot of catches. I think he had 29 catches his entire college career. So getting a more focused approach on route running, focus on catching the ball, good technique on catching the ball, that's not crazy to expect. If he harnesses that and gets better hands, he is a phenomenal athlete and somebody capable of a lot of talent. So I like to have another healthy offseason of Tyler Kroft. I never thought Tyler Kroft was going to be a tight end 1, but I think he's a good tight end 2. I think he's better than fans think. I think he's a good rotational guy. Lee Smith is still a great blocking tight end who doesn't do anything else, but is a good locker room guy and is the kind of guy that Sean McDermott loves. So regardless of how many people want him cut, and he did have a weird amount of frustrating penalties in the first half of last year, he did drop them. There were no penalties in the second half of the year. But that first 9 games was pretty terrible. I expect him to make the roster. I think Tommy Sweeney's a fun guy who can take over for Lee Smith going forward. I don't think he's as good as most fans seem to think. I think he's a backup tight end, but he's a good backup tight end. And I expect him to be, a part of this roster going forward. I expect all 4 tight ends to make the roster, and I expect it to be okay. With our top 3 receivers and the 2-headed backfield that we have, I don't think that's going to be a concern. I think Dawson Knox will be just fine, and I think Tyler Kroft will have a couple flashes during the year that'll make fans excited about having him on the roster. We'll do a couple more questions here. How many wide receivers do the Bills carry in 2020? So obviously the first 3 are really easy. Stephon Diggs, John Brown, and Cole Beasley is, I think, the best wide receiver trio in the AFC and one of the better ones in the NFL. That's a really nice head start. Gabe Davis is a 4th-round pick. Those guys make every roster. Isaiah Hodgins would have been a 4th-round pick in most years' drafts. He was a 6th-round pick this year because of how far people fell. He's not a guarantee. I do think he's going to make the roster. I would love if someone like Isaiah McKenzie and Andre Roberts could morph into one body. I think we need the jet sweep action that Isaiah McKenzie brings. I think we need the sure-handed returning and confidence and aggression in punt return and kick return that Andre Roberts brings. I'm going to be pretty surprised if Andre Roberts doesn't make this team. And I think Isaiah McKenzie is going to make it with that 7th spot. But I also think he could be the guy who could be waived, put on the practice squad in that call-up spot that goes back and forth with that mid-season 54th and 55th spot. I think he's really hurt by the drafting of Jake Fromm. I don't think they drafted Jake Fromm in the 5th round to cut him. I think he's going to make the roster. I think it's going to be 3 quarterbacks, and that means we're going to be short one other spot somewhere. I don't think we keep 7 receivers. So I'm already counting Duke Williams and Robert Foster as not making it. I think some of them might be a draft day or a cut down day trade candidate. maybe Isaiah Hodgins, they try to hide on practice squad. There's more talent than what we have. I just rattled off 9 names of receivers that are good and legit talents that we're obviously not keeping 9. I think we keep 6. 7 would be at the very high end. There were a lot of games last year where we had 5 that were on the roster, but we'll see where that goes. I expect it to be 6, and that there's a really tough cut down between Isaiah McKenzie and Andre Roberts. I expect it to be Roberts because I think he's a more sure-handed returner. We can all cross our fingers that Isaiah McKenzie spent the entire offseason just catching punts from the jugs machine and working on his hands. I think it's going to be tough to earn that trust in training camp and to reassure Sean McDermott that it's okay to cut Andre Roberts. I don't expect that to happen. I expect it to be Andre Roberts, and I don't expect it to be 7 receivers, although I'm open to it, and I'd love to keep Isaiah McKenzie's role in the offense as a jet sweep guy. I believe asking what role will Quentin Jefferson play? I think Quentin Jefferson is going to be a movable chess piece all over this defense. I think there's going to be a lot of different pieces that can be fun and capable of playing all over the place. AJ Epinesa can play both spots. Quentin Jefferson can play all 4 spots across the line. Harrison Phillips can play 1 tech and 3 tech. I think Trent Murphy can kick in to 3 tech on long down distance. They like that versatility. There's a lot of guys. Mario Addison did that in Carolina. He kicked into 3 tech. So there's a lot of flexibility to be able to go there. I expect Quentin Jefferson to play a lot of snaps. I'd say Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison will play the most. Ed Oliver will play the most, assuming he's not suspended. After that, I could see Quentin Jefferson playing the 4th most snaps on the team. I think that he'll play the 4th most out of the defensive linemen anyways, because he'll play all the different spots and fill in everywhere, and then a mix of all the other guys. I think all 8 defensive linemen play a lot, and I think Ed Oliver could crack 70, but I don't expect any of the other guys to crack more than the low 60s. I think that we have enough depth in rotation that we don't need anybody to be playing 70, 75, 80% of snaps. Everybody can stay fresh. Everybody floats between 60 and 40% snaps. I think that's a really healthy rotation and movement to be able to have, and it's going to send waves of pass rushers after every quarterback we play with the best back 7 coverage unit in the NFL. So that's an awesome problem to be able to throw at defenders. So I'll be looking forward to that. We'll do 1 or 2 more questions here. Daniel asked, do all the draft picks make the team? I do think so. I think that we're going to have all the draft picks make the team and that they're there. Dane Jackson, obviously, any 7th round pick is a shot in the dark. Tyler Bass still has to beat out Stephen Hauschka. That's not a guarantee. I do think he will. I think Tyler Bass will be our kicker for 10 years going forward. He impressed the crap out of me at the Senior Bowl. He crushes kicks and he's accurate. So as long as he's got it between the ears and he has the mental toughness for what it takes to kick in the NFL, we're going to be just fine from that standpoint. We'll do 1 or 2 more here. Looking at some of the things, I think some of the red zone weapon questions, I like the idea. I think that although he's not huge, Stephon Diggs is a great red zone weapon. I think Dawson Knox is a red zone weapon. I think Isaiah Hodgins develops into that. I think that's what he's going to be. That kind of 6'5", high vertical jump ball skills with the best catch rate of any receiver in the draft. The dude dropped like 1 pass all of last year at a crazy pass happy Oregon State offense. If you're 6'5" with a huge vertical and wingspan and you have an awesome catch rate and don't ever drop the ball, I'm good with that. That's the kind of guy I want to throw, deep fades to and jump balls and corner routes to in the end zone, back shoulder fades. That's the kind of guy I want to see. So, overall, I think that's going to kind of wrap it up here for the football side of things. We've had a lot of fun being able to talk here. I'll let anybody know, you're free to drop off right now if you're not interested in my takes on what's been going on, but I'm going to talk for a quick minute here. But I appreciate everybody checking out everything that's going on. We're going to be doing updates each week with a positional preview leading us all the way up to when we get back to real football. And we'll have some fun with that as we go forward, getting into training camp and all the things going on here. I've been frustrated watching everything going on around here, and frustrated in the sense that, throughout my career, I've had the good fortune of having a very successful career. I've been able to take care of my family and friends. I've had a lot of opportunities professionally. I speak in front of large groups. I've been responsible for thousands of employees at points in my career. And I always know what to say. I'm quick on the spot. I'm able to articulate myself well in front of customers, in front of my people, in difficult situations, in times of great chaos. I'm able to collect my thoughts, rally the troops, and get everybody together. It's difficult to watch everything going on here when I don't know what to say. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what we're supposed to do next and how we're supposed to be able to move forward. I don't know what it's like to be Black. I don't know that anxiety or fear of watching my brother, my father, my children go out the door and having more than the normal worry about someone that I care about. I don't know what that's like. I see the people trying to do the right thing with peaceful protests and not getting where they're supposed to go. Now, I also am infuriated watching opportunistic, selfish people turn that into violent riots and looting and madness, and so many of them, if not all of them, with ulterior motives of selfish gain, causing chaos, making another group look bad. Many of them coming from outside sources of things. That's really frustrating to see. I feel terrible for my friends and family that are police officers and that are really good people and want to do a good job. And I think the vast majority of police officers are really good people that want to help people and went into this for the right reason. I'm also fearful that I don't know if those same police officers have the discipline to hold the bad apples in their group accountable and to have the discipline to root them out and to get them out of there that are taking advantage of their position and preying on people simply out of a position of power and making all the good cops look bad. I don't know if they have that. And I hope they find a way to do that. I think we need to find a way to do that. I hate how this has turned into picking sides and that you're constantly looking for reasons. So many people in my family, so many people that I'm friends with on all the different social media outlets. I hate how binary it's become and that you're picking sides one way or the other in having to find reasons to support or denounce one side or the other to find evidence of whose fault this is or who to blame. I hate how it makes me feel about people that I care about and people that I love, and that I feel myself thinking differently about them when I shouldn't. And I still love them and I still care about them. And I don't agree with some of the things they say, but it shouldn't make me feel the way that I feel. And I'm embarrassed about the way that makes me feel. And it's just sad. It just is frustrating to be able to have all these things here and to spend my career and my life trying to find solutions for things, trying to fix things, trying to know the right thing to say. And I don't know what to say. I don't know what the next step is. I think some people are right to blame some people in positions of leadership. This isn't a new problem. This hasn't started recently. Maybe it's brought more to light recently. Maybe it's shown more of what's been inside many of us for a long time. But this isn't a new problem. This is something that we're being forced to face now and being forced to deal with. And I hope we find a way to do that. If I come up with a great idea, I'll share it, but I'm going to try to spend more time listening to people that I don't talk to as often. I do have many people of color in my circle of social interaction, but not that many. It's a minority. It's not as many. And I plan to try to spend more time listening to people that I don't interact with as often, and to get more input and to see what ways I can help and what ways I can do things. I want to be open to that. I want to encourage other people to be open to that. And I want to try some new things, some things that are different. And I spend time talking to my family. I spend time talking to my kids. I spend time talking to my wife. I spend time pointing out painful little things that we take for granted that, well, why did we approach that way? What if that person looked differently? Would we have said that? Would we have acted the way we did? Would we have done that differently? Would that have been your default step to treat that person that way, or to take the steps that we did because that person looked that way? And I'm going to try to impact my little world and my circle around me, and hope that I can help some other people think about things differently. And if a couple more people do that, maybe we can start to make some level of difference. And I hope that someone brilliant and charismatic, shows us a path to be able to heal and to find a better way to do this going forward. Because I want to get back to normal. I think that so many of the things going on now with people being out of work and cooped up at home and afraid of the very, very real and some of the not real things that are out there about the disease that's taking place and everything happening. And then that created a flash bomb of reaction to a horrible incident that everyone has seen. And I won't go into that, but was obviously a horrible incident. But this was just the perfect storm of factors to let it explode into what it's been. And I know right now, while I'm doing this, I talked about at the beginning of the show, I struggled whether to come on. Now I've had the equipment set up and been ready to come back and do the show for 3 or 4 or 5 nights now. And every night when I kind of think about it, I'm like, I can't go on now with everything going on. This just seems tone deaf and horrible. And this is a little bit of me letting that off my chest and, venting a little bit and just sharing my humble thoughts on what's going on. I'm just some guy sitting in my in-laws basement without any solutions and just some ideas of things that I want to try to do. But I know that there's scary things going on right now in cities around our country and with people we care about, and cops that hugged their wife and kids before they left, and people who went out with well intentions to try to make a difference in their community and stand up for others who don't have a voice, and others who don't have good intentions and didn't plan on doing anything productive and are taking advantage of the situation. And I still have hope for all of them. And I hope that everyone can find a safe path forward here. And I hope this is an uncomfortable wake-up call for some people who've convinced themselves that we don't have this issue, and that we, I saw Del Reed comment earlier about, people liking to say, I don't see color. Well, maybe we need to see color. Maybe we need to be more okay seeing color and acknowledging there are differences and all the different things that come into that. So I appreciate the people who did hang on to listen a little bit more. I obviously plan on sticking to football and focusing on what we have going forward here. But I struggled so much on whether to come on the show tonight and to do this at all and to give people a little bit of a respite from the madness going on around us. And hopefully I did that for a half hour's worth of football talk. But I needed this for my soul to get it off my chest here at the end and to be able to just kind of vent a little bit about everything going around here. So this is the little tiny platform that I have in my world. And guys, everyone like you who's listened to the shows that I do and the things that we do, I do care about all of you greatly. And I wish everyone here to be safe. And I hope that everyone's able to be in a position to move forward. I certainly feel for the innocent people and business owners and people who are impacted by this by no choice of their own. And I hope we're able to help them as well to be able to fight back from this. So appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate everybody checking this out. We'll get back to core football from now on going forward. But every now and then I do like to get a couple things off my chest, and I appreciate everybody listening for a minute here. You have been listening to Cover One Buffalo. We are going to be out here, and we'll get back to normal going forward. I appreciate everybody listening, the awesome questions we had in the chat, and looking forward to doing the position previews going forward from my new confines. We'll have some fun with this. I'll see what I can do to keep sprucing things up and getting everybody active. But thanks for listening. We are out.